All right. Good evening. Time's 5 p.m. It's Wednesday, April 8th, 2026. This is a special meeting workshop of the Argyle ISD Board of Trustees. At this time, we will determine if a quorum is present.
Leona McDade, present.
Josh Western, present.
Rich McDowell, present.
Leanne Ortho, present.
Matt Slayton, present.
Craig Osler, present.
Yes.
And I, Sam Slayton, present. We do have a quorum established. It is now 5:01 p.m. and under the authority of the Texas Government Code 551, Subchapter D, the board will now go into closed session to go over 551.074, personnel matters and public officers, 551.071, consultation with attorney, 551.0821, personally identifiable student information, and 551.072, deliberation regarding real property. All right, good evening. Time is 6:06 p.m. We have returned from executive session. At this time, we will have the pledges of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honoring the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right, Mr. Hawksworth, I believe you requested to do the opening prayer this evening. Go ahead and give that to you. Thank you.
Dear Lord, thank you for all you do for us each and every day. Thank you for all the educators and students and staff and everybody in this district. Please be with us tonight as we discuss the future. Do things that honor you and that honor the students and staff. We love you, Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Hawksworth. Did not have anyone sign up. All right. We can now move into our workshop.
All right.
right.
Stewart, if you kick us off. And we are staying here since it's live streaming with action items instead of moving back and forth, so.
Sounds great. Okay. Thank you.
All right, good evening. So tonight's a combination workshop for construction and budget. So I'm going to open it with just a couple of slides, and then we're going to turn it over to construction first. Both Jeff and Rolla are here for construction. Jeff will be presenting, and then Rolla's here if you have any questions over the 25 bond projects as we go, and then we will get into the budget portion. So just a quick overview. What we're talking about in construction are 2017 remaining bond funds, the 2022 projects, configuration decision that's on for later tonight, the 25 projects that are in planning, and some construction this summer. On budget, we're talking about some legislative impacts that we talked about last meeting or last workshop. We've got some updates on that and some different changes with the law on taxes. Talking about an early look at a balanced budget and some variables that will come along the way. Okay, so we're going to start with construction first in this part of the meeting. We'll let Jeff start there.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So just to expand on that quick overview, 2017 bond funds, almost 2.2 million nearly remaining funds. So we're looking to get some direction on what we do with those interest earnings. It is all interest earnings from the bond. All of the actual bond dollars have been used. And then some potential uses of those remaining funds with your approval. One of those would be some FF&E dollars for the Legacy High School, which wasn't considered when the bond was put together. As that becomes a high school, there'll be some needs there, and that's one of the possible uses of those funds with your approval. And we're not seeking that approval tonight, but that's just something to think about. We need to make that decision so we can get those bonds closed. Here we've got a snapshot of where we stand on our 22 bond Proposition A. So we've got our different issues listed at the top with the amounts. We've got our total interest earned to date, almost 15.5 million shown there. And then below we've listed the projects. You can see original budget, current budgets, what we spent to date, and then what is remaining. So for example, Elementary 4, that project is closed, so that is the under on that total project, the 1.7 million. The other ones, of course, still all in progress, so those numbers will still be subject to change. But what you can see down at the bottom, when you look at the total Proposition A, 2.36 million or 236 million is our current budget, and with our interest factored in there, we've got a total of 236.5 million. So we're actually approaching a zero position. You know, we had some overages on Elementary 4, Elementary 5. We pulled back Middle School number 2's design, and so we're approaching that zero where 22 bond funds with interest will be able to pay for the 22 bond projects.
Yeah.
So on Elementary 4, we have 1.7 million remaining of unspent bond funds?
From the current budget. So we had the original budget, 39 million, construction was over, which drove that budget to the 48 million. But then we've actually only spent 46 of that projection, so that would be, savings on construction. It would be, we came under probably on some architectural costs. FF&E probably came in under what we
Have
had
we already done all the
allocated.
closeout on that though, where they gave us the
We've closed out the contract on that one. They've returned,
300,000?
I think that's right, 300 some odd thousand on that one from construction. So what was allocated with the increased construction cost, we are under what that projection was essentially.
So,
That includes the extra money from the 2025 bond.
It does not.
It does not.
That's what I'm saying. With the interest that we've earning with these higher rates of return, the 22 fund will be able to pay for all of the 22 projects without having to use those dollars that we thought we needed, and that's why they went into the 25
Okay.
bond.
Okay.
hold on. So what if my recollection is correct, the 25 bond had 15 million or something in it.
I believe it was 15 million.
To make up the deficit for elementary five.
For 5, that's
And
correct.
You're saying, based on coming in under budget, unused bond funds, higher interest rates, we may be able to actually complete 5 with those funds.
With the 22
22
bond funds,
Okay.
consider, it's the interest. I mean, $15 million worth of
I
interest
got
goes a
it.
long way, so
Good. It's all good news, I guess.
it is good news.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, here's our proposition B and C. Again, same thing. Here, we've actually been to the good on both of these projects already. As far as dollar-wise, we're gonna be under what we had in the bond plus interest earned on those. So our 22 bond, these are our current projections. So I try to project where we're gonna be at final completion on construction. So with some of that factored in, it looks like we're gonna be finishing Proposition A about $4.2 million under what was available. Proposition B, just over $1 million. Proposition C, very close to $1 million under what was available, considering interest earned along the way on these funds. And of course, these will change as we update our projections, and we get closer to final completion on construction, as we get, to the point where we can say we're done buying FF&E, and we shut that off, and we're not buying that, then we can actually reconcile that and see what the final numbers are. But these are our projections. Like to know where we're headed, not just wait till we get there. On status of current projects, Michael Ball Elementary.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
So on those approximately $6 million across the 3 in remaining funds, what's left to be closed from FF&E stuff? Is that all that's left to be closed?
No, not on 22 bond. We've got the middle school, Gibson Middle School and Ball Elementary School, which were 22 projects still ongoing. We're at the tail end of the stadium and indoor activity center wrapping those up. So there were still some construction costs, still some potential FF&E going into those.
So if you look at the slide before this, this is what, budget, like the current budget versus what we're spending and where we're tracking. What he's showing you on the next slide is where he's projecting, if you look at this as a whole and where some items are gonna come in under, he's projecting what the total will be at the end. But we haven't updated those budgets yet because they're still ongoing projects, if that helps between the difference in the slides.
But the total, go to the next slide. One more. It's still saying, hey, these aren't final because there's more to come, right? So it's not 6 million. Because
Projecting 6 million at the end.
even after these, it says projections will change. So they're gonna change slightly is what you're telling me. Could be up, could be down.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I asked, because that's not how I read that.
Okay. So just some updates where we're at on Michael Ball Elementary School. We've got foundations and underground plumbing ongoing. Underground electrical is ongoing. We should be starting on the storm shelter, which is masonry walls. Takes a long time to build those, so we should be starting on that very soon. But some of the things we're doing out there are also dependent on the configuration discussion that's on the agenda for later tonight. And that would probably, if we make that move, that will involve some alterations to some of the spaces, not a change in the footprint, not a change in the structural steel package, which we've already, procured. It's already been fabricated. But it will also, it will involve some acoustical treatments for band spaces is one area, probably an additional art room to serve those grades, some of those kind of things, but we'll work that within the envelope that we have rather than changing the footprint.
And I have some more of that in my presentation
Okay.
too.
We'll require some time for the redesign, time for pricing of that redesign, then we'll have to get that approved, potential permitting timelines with that as well, with the town. And of course, some of the scope would be deleted. There would no longer be the need of a pre-K, a lower grade level, age level playground with that configuration. So there'll be some things that offset some of these alterations that we'd have to make. So, we hope that we could come out at a net zero on that. But until we get approval of that and then get the design, we won't really know. Status on Gibson Middle School. Our finishes are ongoing. We've got ceramic tile happening, millwork installation, lab casework installation. We're painting. Ceilings are in. All the grid is in, not the tile. But that allows them to drop lights, HVAC grills. We can start installing cameras and some of those things that attach to the grid at that point. Utilities, we have gas connected. Had a little issue with CoServe on setting the meters last Friday. They came out expecting one thing and saw something else, even though they told us how many conductors we needed. They weren't prepared for that, so they're going to be back on Friday of this week to complete. And then our access agreement that we have with the Well Church, we got that all finalized back in late February. All the documents have now been signed, have been sent to the county to be filed, and all of that recorded. So moving on, if there's no questions, moving on to 2025 Proposition A. Again, summary of our projects and our original budgets, current budgets, what we've spent. Again, our interest, which will probably be significant in a few more months, but right now at $3.5 million. And of course, the current projections are that we have the money in this bond to pay for this bond, and then there is the elementary 5 escalation cost that appears will not be needed for that use. So,
Well, I'm sorry, he was talking to me. Would you tell me that line
I was
again?
answering a question he asked me.
so we have the line item in here for the elementary number 5
That's the
escalation,
question I was asking him, by the way.
which it appears that we will no longer need from this bond. So that's $15 million that will not need to be spent on that.
And it hasn't been sold, those haven't been sold yet anyway, right? That, Liz, or had it been? Was that part of the original sale?
The
It's been
original
sold.
plan it was included in what
Oh.
was the first
Originally,
issue.
the first issue, okay.
However,
Okay.
that is just, it's a building and would be included with the others.
Okay.
We can move that to the end if
Okay.
those funds aren't needed
Okay.
and potentially not sell that at the very end.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Here's our 2025 Proposition B. And nothing really to report here with that project. Give you a few details here in a minute. Project, quick updates. We've got middle school number 2 in the very early stages of design work. Elementary 6 will be very soon in those same stages of early design and planning work with our architect. Projects that are in design and permitting, design/construction and permitting stages. Our transportation parking lot here at Argyle High School. We've been into the town for 2 rounds of review on site plan. I haven't heard if we've gotten comments back on round 2. There will probably be a 3rd round. I hope that is the final round. I think the permitting process will be much quicker since there's no building. So once site plan approval, the rest should go pretty quick with that. On the connector hallway here at Argyle High School, We are set to have, I believe it's 100% documents issued tomorrow. So our CM has got the bid process set. He's ready to run the advertisements, and the bid date on that is April 29th. Make sure I don't confuse my dates. So we are hoping to bring you GMP on that one in May at the regular board meeting. Baseball softball complex at Argyle High School, again in design. It's been into the town for, it's in the town second review for site plan right now currently. I think comments will probably not be coming back for at least 2 weeks on that one. We have seen 100% DD drawings, which are actually very well progressed, really into almost CD drawings, especially on the civil side. So that one should not take long to put together design-wise to where we can get that out. And I think we're looking at around October date, I believe it is, for a GMP for you on that project. On our baseball softball complex renovations down at 377, that project is out for bid currently. That bid date is April 23rd. That's a CSP project, so we are looking to bring you recommendation probably for the May 6th board meeting on that project for a GC. And capital improvements at Hilltop and 377, that was issued, contractors was approved at the last board meeting. And we are working with them to get all their submittals in, a procurement process started, working through the ceiling scope, PA, fire alarm, those things. And they're ready to kick it off as soon as we can get people out of the building this summer. And then just some upcoming decisions that we'll be asking you to make. Campus configuration is on for tonight. Use of remaining 2017 bond funds will be coming up soon. We've got our CM at risk contractor for middle school 2 and elementary 6. That should be in front of you at the April board meeting. And then, as I just said, we're looking to have the GC for that baseball renovation to you on the May 6th meeting. Do you have any questions for me or for Rolla?
Are you gonna be making a recommendation to us about what, for the use of the remaining 2017 bond funds, or you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we will bring a recommendation.
Blank check.
Just wanted to put it in your
You
mind
want me to
tonight.
dream up some stuff?
Yeah.
Let's-
Not a
That's
blank
where I
check for
think he was
Josh.
mentioning.
No, we're not
the
asking for
FNE.
that.
Mhm.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move into budget planning a little bit. If you have any questions, just stop me at the time and we'll go into it a little bit further. We're going to look at just some things tonight. We talked a lot about the frozen levies last meeting. We're going to look in a little bit deeper this time. I told you last time we were going to look at some legislative changes for this meeting that affect the tax rate and budget adoption. So we've got a couple of things there we're going to look at. We're going to review the 26-27 staffing, and then we're going to have a snapshot of the 26-27 budget outlook. And I believe last discussion also y'all wanted to look at the fund balance and the history of that and where we're projected to go. So we've got that in here as well. So last month we talked about the Senate Bill 4 and Senate Bill 23, the frozen hold harmless, and the issue that we were seeing this year. And that's an impact for 25-26, which also impacts any future year planning. So the expectation of that bill, just as a reminder, was that there would be a significant drop in frozen levy and that the bill language would hold districts harmless through additional state aid for adjustment of limitation on tax increases and homestead of elderly or disabled. So we're just going to call this frozen hold harmless to shorten that down a lot, right? And last meeting, I showed you what had happened in 23, because that was the first year of this, what had happened in 24, and then if you remember, the 25 amount there last month, when we looked at this, was zero. And that we knew there were issues, there were statewide issues with how it was being interpreted. At the comptroller's office, there were data issues from all the CAD throughout the state. And so TEA came out, they were working with agencies throughout the state. There was input from everyone, and they came out with some changes and said, we understand this was not the intent. We're going to look at it and this way. And so with the TEA changes, our frozen hold harmless for 24, so for the 25 tax year, which is this current fiscal year, is a little over 600,000. And so that's much better than the zero. Still not as much as we had the year before, right? Wasn't exactly what our expectation was, but it was really good progress in a short amount of time. So that was really good for us to see in our budget planning, and that also means we could use that information moving forward into next year's budget planning. That affected what we're looking at. What I can tell you, though, what I feel like is going to happen year to year is this is going to be a moving target. It's always going to be based on some data of what it would have been, right, under the old law versus what it is under the current law, and depending on what your CAD sends in under that data, depends on what works out on that, if there's any other interpretations along the way. So at this time, we're taking the information that's been changed with TEA, and we're using that data moving forward. We'll use that. Budget Amendment 3 you already saw last month. It's also going to be in front of you in the April meeting. It will be unchanged. We will use this information moving forward in any future budget amendment that we rework for the 25-26 school year. But we are also using this information to redo our numbers for 26-27. So that was a little bit of a change from what we talked about last meeting. And
Can I ask you a question
Sure.
about that very confusing subject? The hold harmless language in the legislation hasn't changed. How you calculate it, what we're entitled to.
Correct.
That's not, but how much we receive changes pretty significantly.
that is correct.
And so it must be the data that's going into the formula.
Well, this year, there were two issues. One was the data, and one was the way the comptroller interpreted the
Wait.
legislation.
Well, that didn't make any sense to me because the legislation didn't change between
Well,
24. Did it change between 24 and 25?
Yes, so the first original hold harmless came in 23. And so that you had that for 23 tax year and the 24 tax year. And then in the 25 tax year, they added Senate Bill 4 and Senate Bill 23, which changed from 100,000 homestead exemption to 140, and it increased over 65 and disabled from 10 to 60, because years ago, when they increased that homestead exemption, they forgot to write in the law about the over 65 frozen. So they've gone back and caught that up. So there was a change in law. It increased what was captured in that frozen hold harmless. It should not have decreased it. But along with that, the comptroller's office changed how they interpreted the calculation and what data would be considered. And to complicate that, every CAD has to generate their own data and send in, and based on their software vendors, they had some difficulties generating that data. So depending on what CAD you were in, you had difficulties with that, but you also had difficulties with the interpretation. Some districts did not see a reduction at all. They saw an increase, exactly like what they were expecting. There were a lot of districts like us that saw a decrease or zero. And so, again, there was a change, but it should have increased. It only added to the law that was already there.
So then that means the data from Denton County CAD
Change.
was the challenge.
At this point, the difference
Because if
between...
others saw the same, either theirs was wrong and the others was right, or the others are wrong and theirs is right.
Right.
And nobody's checking that out?
So we do work with them to check that out, and they're relying on their software vendors, right? I mean, their main thing that they're doing is tax evaluations and getting that out to property holders, right? And to businesses and everything. This is something that's specific only to schools, and it's only in this calculation of school funding, and it's something that their software vendor will generate for them and
You
send
just
it. So
couldn't make it more confusing. You really, school
That's their
funding,
goal.
You just couldn't make it more complicated.
That's their goal.
It's unreal.
And I think you and I have talked a few times about historically, this would be data we would have going into the year. There was a change several legislations ago where we went to using prior year values in state funding to using current year values. So if we were back in that frame of mind, we would have this data now to budget for next year. Now we're in you don't get this data until the end of January in the school year you're in, or in the fiscal year you're in. So it's a little different, and we're all adjusting. What I can tell you is I do believe this number will be something that we have to look at every year. We have to work on every year. And
But in last year, when we were sitting in this budget workshop, you knew, man, under this hold harmless provision, we got $1 million
I didn't
last year.
Yeah,
know it
last
at the
point.
time.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
we were
you-
getting there,
You're
yeah.
getting there, but you were getting close to $1 million, and so you were kind of working that number in, thinking, okay, so when I build the 25, 26 budget, I'm thinking $1 million is what, and then
We thought $1 million minimum because we thought there would be an increase because of the new laws.
we get now we're like, okay, it's 0, now it's 600, and
Right. It's a very
and so
moving
now we're
target.
building the budget again. You're kind of like, I'm going to use 600. Am I going to use
We're-
less?
We're using 600. The data won't come out until January of next year. I mean,
It just
it's
is
the best that we can
a-
do with, if we had more data on this, if you had more years to go back, you would have, some historical trends you could use, but right now it's 3 years old. This year's data is not exactly comparable to 23 and 24 because there's supposedly more hold harmless in there, even though you're not recognizing it.
So I'm guessing that this time last year, like you said, we didn't find out until January the real number of million. Any idea where we were on this day, this presentation last year? What you were forecasting, was it 600 because the year before was 600?
We were using 600 at that point, yes.
Okay, so in theory, it could still be $1 million.
Right, this is my opinion only. I think this is going to be a moving target every year.
It's like the formula transition grant.
Yes. So, but we were very concerned, and that's why we brought it to your attention, was the fact that we had lost it completely when we knew that wasn't the intent of the law. So I did want to let you know that had been updated. DEA did take some steps, and this is where we're at now. So, and we are using that data in 26, 27.
Good luck.
Thank you. I feel like it's luck on this and not data driven.
That's all we got.
Yeah.
Good luck. We guessed right.
All right, some other changes in the law. There's some new truth in taxation requirements. This is just to make you aware, Senate Bill 1023. It requires that when the comptroller's tax rate calculation forms to include a hyperlink to all the documentation that we use to generate the data. So in the past, the requirement was that we post this on our website, and if you'll click that 2526 link there. So just so you know what we've done and what was required of us, and you go to the right there, the 2526 adopted budget. Okay, so this is a required summary after you adopt the budget that is required to be on our website. And if you scroll down and go to starting on page 3, that is the truth in taxation worksheet of how we derive our calculations. So that's required to be out there as well. So it's out there on our website. If you've never gone and looked for it, you probably didn't even know it was on our website. But included in this, for next year, we will have to include a hyperlink into this document that has the detailed backup of any formula, any number that was used in this calculation other than you add these two numbers together, you divide these two numbers, right? Other than just a calculation, we've got to provide that. So all of that said, it may take us a little bit longer just because that's not something we've done in the past. We've always gathered the data, we've just never had to hyperlink it. So we were talking about some new issues and some timing. That's one of them.
For what purpose?
Transparency for taxpayers. So,
Transparency into a formula they're not sure is correct.
This hyperlink will change every year.
Additional, there's House Bill 1522, and this requires that a physical copy of the proposed budget is in the open meeting notice or on the district's website when we post the meeting notice to talk about the proposed budget. So when we bring you the proposed budget in August, we either have to put the details in that open meeting notice, which is very cumbersome. We will more than likely put it on our website, a link on our website that has that information. So that is new. Also, you have to have a taxpayer impact statement in the open meeting notice. Now, this one does not give you the option to put it on your website. It must be in the open meeting notice. And so, some of the agencies that we'll work with will help provide a standard form for us of how to incorporate this in. But you've got to compare the median value homestead property to the property tax bill for the current fiscal year and to an estimate for the upcoming fiscal year. So in the notice of the public meeting, we already used the average taxpayer value, right? The average homestead, and we provide that comparison. But now they're also making us go in and do a median value, and it's got the notice is in the paper, right? This will have to be in the open meeting notice. So you'll have two different places with two different numbers. Because one calls for the average, one calls for the median. So if you happen to be a taxpayer looking at both, you may be a little confused of why they aren't the same. Just letting you know it will be out there. They have two different meanings, but it is more information that's required. All right. Another change on the tax rate adoption, this has to do with our INS tax rate calculation. This is Senate Bill 1453. It was effective January 1st of 26, so it did not affect us in last year's tax rate calculation, but it will affect us in this year. It calls out that you have to use the minimum value of debt in your INS tax rate calculation. If you do not use the minimum value, then you have to have a specific motion and a 60% supermajority vote for adoption if the rate is higher than the new rate with the minimum. So in the past, if we used a rate that we said, hey, we've got the opportunity to pay off some debt, we're going to save the district taxpayers money by doing paying off some debt early or doing something different, we could use that in our calculation. And this changes that unless y'all agree, supermajority vote, 60% specific motion. So just know those are some things we're going to talk about. You'll see different things in our August meeting. This is one reason that when we were going through all of these and looking at the quick turnaround for what had to be posted in the newspaper and on our website and all that, our August meeting for the budget and tax rate is a week later this year. It gives us a little bit more time to try and incorporate some of these changes because they were rather quick turnaround from timing for us.
Can you, in those two different places, you have to post two different numbers? We need to put some kind of disclaimer in there that, hey, this number is this, the other number is over here. Because otherwise, you're gonna get 18 billion questions.
Right.
Or accused of doing it wrong, or all the wonderful things that you receive.
So a suggestion that we're talking through looking at is, in the past, the notice has been required in the newspaper, and this is a new notice in the Open Meetings Act. Maybe putting those on our website so that we can post both with a description of what the difference is.
Yeah.
And that way we can direct anybody to that so that they can see what they both are and why there's a difference in information. So. Okay, staffing details, because y'all know staffing makes up a lot of our budget, right? In our school districts, about 81%. They are linked here. You can go back and look at them. Dr. Daniels discussed them with you. The main point for this workshop, though, in this discussion, is to let you know that Phase 1 and Phase 2 are both within our budget. I know there were questions when you were asked to approve Phase 1 of, what's included, what keeps us balanced, are we approving something that's going to take us to a deficit? So we've looked at Phase 1 and Phase 2 are in budget. Phase 3 is a potential, and you're going to see Phase 3 tonight. I don't believe it's going to come back to you for approval until later, and that's going to give us time to work on our budget a little bit more because we are early in our budget process, right? Our budget doesn't start till 9/1. Some of the districts around us, their budget starts July 1. You're going to see them approve a budget in June, right? They're a couple of months ahead of us. We're a couple of months behind them. So right now, we're still in that development. We've got a lot of things to work out. Our campus and department budgets are due back to our office April 20th. Once we have those, we'll work through them. We'll know a little bit more. We'll be able to massage those numbers some, see if what we estimated as increases are actually what's needed. Do we need to go back and do some more work? We've got some things, some other large increases that we know you're opening a campus, right? Your operations on that are significant. The first year you open a new physical location. We won't have quotes back on that for another month or two. So we've got some things that we have some estimates for, but we need to get further in that budget development. And as that happens, then we may be able to pull Phase 3 into budget. But that's just we don't know at this point if we can make that happen. But to keep things moving, it will be presented, you will look at it, it gives you time to think about it and discuss it before we ever bring it back for consideration.
And
So
we're going around and doing our State of the District meetings on campuses. So we've completed three of the 7 so far. We've been to 6th grade center, middle school, and high school, I believe, to this point. And one of the things, and we've gone over this with our staff and also shared with them because of during the mid-year superintendent survey, they prioritize those priorities again from last year, compensation being the highest. And so Ms. Stewart's been sharing with them in these meetings that we aren't waiting until the end to try to figure out compensation. We have a set aside in this budget already, the way she's presenting it, for when we get those numbers back from TASB. So there is a set aside in here for compensation package that will be done in June, but we do have a set aside in here because it was the number one priority from staff, along with the staffing requests.
Thank you. Okay, so this is, again, a very early, and I label this early and tentative because y'all know this is going to change, but this is where we're at this point in time in working on the 26-27 budget. So we always start with the base budget from the current year we're in, and we look at the changes. So we looked at the revenue, we've run our summary, we're using the demographers' estimates, which drive that. We've got estimates in for our property values. We'll get more information on that later. We see what that does with revenue. And then you look at our expenses. What are our big line items that change from year to year in expenses? So we knew we had some one-time costs built into 25-26 that, again, they were one-time, so they'll come out of the budget for next year. We've got some, again, what we feel like are holds for department and campus budgets increases. Once we work through those numbers, that $678,000 will change, right? We hope that we've projected enough and we can bring that down some. Opening GMS, the operations, this is taking into consideration anything from utilities to property insurance to taking care of the campus. That's our first run at an estimate for that. We use historical data on what our campuses currently cost us to project that out for a new campus. And then just as we did with the middle school opening, the year before it opens, so in the 25-26 budget, we had items budgeted for middle school, for Gibson Middle School. We didn't have a name at the time, we were calling it Middle School 1, but we had some line items in there because your staff all comes to work before the fiscal year starts. Remember, the fiscal year starts September 1st. They've been at work for a month, some of them for 2 months. Sometimes you're hiring a principal 6 months early. There are costs associated with that the year prior. So we've got that in here for LHS2 at our best estimate of what that year prior to opening will be. The staffing plan, phase 1 and phase 2. If y'all add those up, it's not exactly $5 million, but that's the dollar amount we were using. We're close to that. So I know if you go take those two numbers and add them up, you're gonna come back and tell me I was wrong on that. Just know we're close, okay? You are under that $5 million with those two.
Most people are okay with you rounding. It's
Yes,
okay.
rounding
Estimating.
everything.
I know you don't like to do that, but
We like to round in these big pictures here. So, and then as Dr. Carpenter mentioned, the compensation planning amount, we've set aside $2 million from that. We use, again, historical data on what the raise packages have been in the past, how much they've been, how much they've grown, what we're expecting to grow in staff, and feel like that's enough to cover what TASB may suggest back as a compensation package next year.
will you also explain real quick what we've been sharing with staff, as well as the HB2, the raise that was for teachers last year, and how that's impacting year over year, so that everybody's clear on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, as a reminder, HB2 last year that the legislature put into place, they funded teacher raises. Remember, they've used a lot of money into public ed, but they told us what to do with it, right? The biggest amount of that was for teacher raises. So for a district of our size, if you were a 3 or 4 year teacher or had 3 or 4 years of experience, it was a $2,500 raise. If you had 5 years or more, it was $5,000. The early end of that scale for 0, 1, and 2, that was a local decision. And locally, the board approved raises for those positions as well. So how that works is moving forward, the state still funds, we're gonna say I'm a 10-year teacher. So I got that $5,000 last year, right? Y'all don't hold me to these numbers. I don't know our pay scale off the top of my head, but say it was, say as a teacher, I had $60,000 and then the state, funded that $65,000. So I made $65,000 this year. Next year, I still get that $5,000, right? I get that $65,000, but I don't get an additional $5,000 on top of that. It's not added to it year over year, so it doesn't jump up to 70 and then 75. It's that they're going to fund that same either 5,000 or that same 2,500 year over year, and then it's up to the district to do a local raise on top of that. So we had some discussions, we had some questions, there was some confusion on how that worked moving forward, and we just wanted to make sure that all of our staff were aware of how it worked, because the last thing we want for somebody to do is to show up and get their first check in September and be extremely disappointed because it's not what they were expecting. So we're trying to make sure that we're all clear on how that HB2 pay plan works.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
but
that's great.
Is that a 3% raise?
We don't have
And the compensation.
we don't have the
Planning.
data back of what is recommended from TASB. We feel like we put enough in there to cover a range in there of percentages, but I don't have the data from TASB. I know Dr. Daniel's working with them. He's got like a first round, and he'll have the data back in time for the June meeting.
June workshop.
Yes.
But we,
Does that line item, or is it included in here anywhere, the potential for leveling up certain, like campus administration?
Won't cover that.
It would include anything we want to include in that.
in the compensation
But it's
package.
not in there now. That $2 million
It's just
placeholder.
earmarked.
We just
It is
earmarked.
just earmarked.
We haven't done anything with it yet. We've just earmarked it based
But
on.
to your point, we know that 3%, we know what that generates
If,
typically,
right, if 3% comes back at 1.8, you know, there's some leeway there to do other things.
Right.
If 3% comes back at 2.2, we've got to go back to work and find that extra 2, right? But yes, right now, and what we're explaining to our staff when we're going to these meetings is we can't tell you what that means individually for you. It's not a percent, it's not a dollar amount, it's not anything at this point. It's just us saying, based on history, we feel like this is the amount we need to set aside so that we're not asking you to approve all these phases of staffing, all these different department budgets and everything, and then coming back at the end and going, oh, we've asked you to spend all the money, now can you give a compensation package on top of that that puts us in a deficit budget? So we're just
But
trying to
that's
be,
where any potential leveling up would come there, in that line.
yes. And again, as we develop this budget more, all of these numbers will change, and we can move things around from line item to line item. These are just where we're at this point in time.
Okay.
Okay. I think I mentioned April 20th is when campus department budgets are due. We also get our first look at property values at the end of April from DCAD. We'll get weekly updates on that, I believe, through early July. And then we get our certified values July 25th. Any more questions on this part before we move forward? Okay. All right, fund balance. This is the best estimate at fund balance. So 25, 26, and 26, 27 are estimated. The 20 through 21 through the 24, 25 are actuals. So I know if you take a look at that and you go, okay, that fund balance is going the wrong direction, right? And we're talking about a balanced budget. Board policy says 17%. We've always tried to operate and practice at 25%. But if you're in a growing district, that means your budget is growing every year. That means if you have a balanced budget, your fund balance percentage is going down, right? You would have to put back surplus budget every year in a growing district in order to maintain your fund balance percentage. There are years, you can see there in 24, 25, that's the year that we had all the students show up in addition to what was projected by our demographer. That created a surplus budget for us. We ended the year, it went up. There's going to be years of it going up and down, but this is my best guess. Y'all know I'm a little conservative on that. So I would hope that both of these years would finish higher. If you look at our trend right now in 25, 26, we're coming in under on some of our expenditures and we're coming in better on some of our revenues. So I would, even though the books don't say we have a large surplus, I would tell you we have a little more of a surplus, and that's how we should probably end. So I don't want you to be alarmed when you're looking at this, but I think I've worked with all of y'all long enough to know that I'm going to give you more of a conservative approach when I'm giving you a future look than what we may actually end up. But that is the trajectory that I believe that we're in.
And I have read in recent years where the state looks at fund balances, and when they see high fund balances, they conclude that the schools are overfunded and just sitting on tons of cash. They kind of punish you in some ways as you build your fund balance.
I've heard that as well.
So are we better off to stay at, doesn't the state make a recommendation too?
So in some of their ways that they rate us, you're looking more at the 25%. Those would be in our first rating that we get every year. There's some of the factors in there are going to look at your fund balance, but they're also going to look at your cash flow, which is separate than your fund balance. So they are going to rate you at a little bit higher percentage, but that is the only place that they're really rating us on fund balances in
They'll
that.
rate
Now,
you that way, but they'll criticize you.
Yeah, no,
Right.
that's my point. Like, we should, if that's the case, then other than our first rating, which we don't want to give up, is we should be closer to the 17,
Mhm, yeah.
right? Because that's the only way we're going to get
Well, they
positive support from the state.
Yeah.
I mean, I would tell you best practice is to aim toward getting closer to that 25%.
I agree. And you've done it, and first rating is something that you've achieved for a long time, and we don't want to sacrifice that. It's just trying to play the game. There shouldn't be a game we have to play with the state, but they're making it into a game.
So. All right, any other questions on that, or any other items that we want to talk about in the budget or in the budget development? Okay.
So it takes more money each year in a growing budget to equal 17%.
That's correct.
Okay.
Because you're not looking at a dollar amount, you're looking at a percent.
Is that percentage? Okay.
Okay, so our next steps, we won't have anything related to the actual budget development on April 20th meeting, but we have another budget workshop on May 6th. That's when you're going to be asked to consider the staffing plan phase 3 potentially. We'll have some more information and some more details. Again, we're still looking at big picture right now. We'll have some details to share with you. 18th regular meeting, and then June 4th is when we're going to have a workshop, and we're going to talk about the compensation plan. That'll be the majority of that meeting, as well as the compensation plan. And then I didn't list it on here, but we do aim to bring a budget recommendation to you at the same night as our tax rate recommendation in our August meeting. Technically, tax rate can be adopted in September if needed, but we like to keep them together in the same meeting if we can. So, are there any questions or any more information that y'all want to look at or discuss, or some things that you want to see in the next workshop that we haven't gone over, or more details?
I know we're going to talk a little bit about the audit, the demographer audit. Will any of that, I guess depending upon the findings, impact what you present, or possibly?
I think it's more about long-term growth
Yeah.
numbers. When we get it back, we don't have it yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
on that.
I mean, if there was a drastic difference,
Yeah.
we'd probably want to maybe rethink something, but
Okay.
just right, more of a long-term approach, look at it.
Okay.
So I know I brought it up. I know we just got some data on it today about administration compensation. Looking at these dates in my status, I may have to be here on the 4th in public forum, but it's something that I want to make. And I know you guys you've got the data, but I think it's really important that we look at that.
And you're referencing campus administration?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Not you.
I'm talking about, I wanted them to hear
I'm
that.
kidding.
Wanted them to hear that.
Yes, I am. I just think there's, we always talk about, I've used this example before, and we talk about all kinds of different departments compared to those around us, rightfully so. But I feel like, and I've been a part of those boards that, not that we didn't talk about them, but we didn't make changes. So that's why I think there's some places and positions that we need to really take a look at.
And
Yeah.
Dr. Daniel's been working on gathering data, and I know we'll work with Hasby as well as getting some other data.
Right, and I got to see some of that today, so I know you're working on it, but when I look at the dates and know that I'm not gonna necessarily be here, so I gotta get it.
We're all looking at those dates, man.
I mean, being on the board.
Trust me.
Yeah. I mean, on that side.
We all got that calendar.
So we're gonna pencil you in for public comment that
Yes,
night.
just go ahead and, Rick,
And
put
then
me
we'll
on every
and then
day.
we'll transcript you.
Every
We'll
meeting,
give you a
put me on.
response within 7 days.
Because you know I'm gonna come in right at the last second.
Okay.
39 or 40.
He's part of the permanent document.
Who's counting?
Any other questions or comments on this? All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's not
We have one information only item, and then we'll move into the 2 discussion action.
okay.
Remember who's seen phase 3, 2, and 1? You haven't seen phase 3 at all, right?
Yeah, no, we have.
You have? Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of people have. So this is phase 3. This is information only.
You've been presenting it on the campuses. That's
Oh,
why
I know.
it's
Yeah.
top of mind right now. Mhm.
So phase 3, as Ms. Stewart mentioned, is not included in the budget. This is something that we're going to look at later, early May or mid-May to see if these are positions that, that will work within the budget, but these are positions that are needed, so thank you. Not too many. The first is teacher residency program, and we are hoping, I think we're going to have 8 potential elementary school student teachers. You want to talk a little bit more about the details of
My
that?
life here.
Yes, I think so. Is she on the mic there, Greg, from over there? Okay, yes.
So I just got notification today that we are actually assigned 6 instead of 8.
Okay.
Resident teachers. So what it is teachers, students who are in their final year of college get a paid student teaching residency. We have interviewed all these candidates. We had a team, plus we had any teacher that was interested that was selected by their principal as a potential mentor sit in on the interviews as well. So we've gone through that process, and like I said, 6 were awarded. So it comes at a cost of $10,000 per resident for our part of their salary, and TEA pays another $10,000. So they're receiving $20,000 a year to work as basically a full-time aide. The first semester they're there 3 days a week. The second semester they're there 4 days a week. The mentor teacher also gets $2,000 stipend from TEA. And it's setting our teachers up, our campuses up, to have a year-long interview with some potential teachers, giving them the opportunity to learn our curriculum, to learn our expectations, and as we are opening new campuses, we'll have hopefully 6 awesome teachers ready to enter the pipeline and be ready to go.
And I think it's important to note, because sometimes we talk about student teaching in the business world, internships are paid. Student teaching is not a paid thing. It never has been, and so this is a grant program, or I guess it's kind of a grant program.
It is a grant,
Prep
yeah.
allotment through TEA, and so we have applied, Dr. Jordan applied, and we have received that, and so she and her team have been working on this process with the principals, so.
Next is a counseling position at AMS. This is a position that we would look to hire mid-year, who would transition to the new high school and help with the opening of that. So it's not a counsel that we would need right now at that smaller campus, but it's more of a planning type position. And then with added bus routes, we need another bus monitor, locksmith, HVAC, and technology administrative assistant. I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, there was an administrative assistant here. She moved to the high school and was kind of split between 2 positions. Now that person is split between student nutrition and technology, and so we're looking to bring that position back. That was one that was partially eliminated a few years ago.
So on the counselor one for AMS, would it be half that money if they're gonna come mid-year?
Actually, we talked about it coming on full because it will transition into planning for.
The next
It actually
school.
would be, we would
Okay.
actually bring it on full at the beginning. Mhm.
Okay.
And then transfer it into, because obviously the course selections and all that for high school starts, and that's a pretty big process, so.
Yeah.
mhm. Master scheduling, all those things.
Okay.
Are any of the positions under operations and maintenance in the phase 2, things that we contract out currently, like locksmith, HVAC, that it would balance out in the budget? Do you know?
We've
We'll have to
done that in
pull
the
it-
past.
We'll have to
but-
pull it phase 2, but on these right
Yeah.
here,
So on phase 2 or phase 3?
well, we can go to
I mean,
phase.
just
any
in
of 'em.
general, I feel like some of them are probably things we're contracting out now, so does bringing
Some
them
of them,
on
so
save?
for HVAC, for instance, when
Yes.
we come back in August, some years we've been hit harder than others
Yes.
with more units down than we could handle at one time, trying to get everybody back in time.
Yes.
And the classrooms to a comfortable temperature. We have contracted some work out there at the past. It would be a different amount each time depending on the problems and the issues that we had. Typically during the year, unless we have something major happen, we try and handle it in-house. We are adding, though, with the addition of a campus, it adds several more units onto the staff that we already have.
Right.
As far as the locksmith, typically it just takes longer for us to get to the issue right now than what it would be. I think we've every once in a while contracted something out, but most of the time they just have to wait on our current locksmith that's in place.
Okay.
Some of the others, as far as grounds that were on phase 2, right now. And if you look at our campuses, we do have weeds showing up. And I want to just say that when we made the decision 2 years ago to cut 2 grounds positions and we added a campus, we knew that's what we were doing. We knew it would take longer, and our ground staff takes great pride in what they do. And so it hurts them to go out there and see the weeds growing up that they haven't been able to get to it at that point. And we're assuring them every day, we understand and we know that you're doing the best you can. And so we have not contracted grounds out. We've had some summer help come in every single year, but that's been ongoing for years. The other one on phase 2 operations. Irrigator. Currently, right now, the irrigator stays mainly at the high school. That's about all they can handle. It takes almost all day. So when we add the campus at Gibson, and eventually the elementary part of that too, you've added a lot more irrigation.
Right.
And so sometimes we know, to answer your question, we have not been contracting that out, but it does take longer to get to a league and pulls them off of something over here. So between this campus and just the new site alone would keep the 2 people busy the majority of the time. Does that help with?
It does.
Fine.
And just out of curiosity, like whenever you decide which positions you're gonna propose for approval, like what is the process in general? Like how do you decide, okay, we're gonna approve these positions, we're gonna wait on these, and is there any kind of log of, like every year, I know that the librarians ask for aides, the nurses ask for aides, like how do we make sure we're keeping track of who is asking for support?
So Dr. Daniel works with the campus principals. They meet
Right.
during their staffing process. Obviously, they're going to be the spokesperson for the needs on their campuses. So they meet on that, and then we also have our departmental leads come in and do 5-year plan presentations every year. So they build their staffing request from this year to 5 years out. We look at that. All of those requests, all of their requests, the fine arts, anything from athletics, those all come onto, we have an internal working sheet that we have, and that's where we started phasing them. Looking at starting, obviously, priority was to get Gibson open. First priority is classroom. Anything that's on the campus as far as instructional support. You'll see in the phase 2 tonight, the campus support aid. There's 4 of those, 1 for each elementary. That's because they all kind of need something different. Some principals need help in the nurse, some need help with the reception, some need help maybe as a library, but then they all need permanent sub help because they've got classes that happen to merge. So one aid that they can use however they need to, making sure that classes are covered first. So that would give them the flexibility to plug that person in, because they know and should be able to make the decisions where those people could be plugged in. So that's on phase 2 for approval tonight. So
And they can rotate, like.
That would be up to the campus.
If they decide
The campus principal could determine where the need was. First priority would be to make sure a teacher is not taking on 2 classes.
Right.
That would be the first priority, all classes covered, and then they could decide where they needed them beyond that, because there will be needs each day. But that's all part of the process, and we pull all that into one spreadsheet, and then from that spreadsheet we make the phases, which is what we're bringing to you all, deciding which layer to put them on. But we always start with classroom impact first, or the opening of a campus. What does it take to open programs?
And so when we get to the end of this, I'm gonna look at the overall budget, and 80% or more is gonna be going to instruction, right?
Staffing.
No, staffing.
Staffing. Mhm.
Okay. But I mean, when our overall budget though, I mean, we're prioritizing instruction in our budget.
That's correct.
We're prioritizing competitive pay,
Yes.
and we're
Same priorities as last
prioritizing
year.
maintaining small class sizes that we can manage at the elementary school level.
That's correct.
Yes.
Good.
In phase one that you've already approved was 3.1 million. And that was all classroom, campus level, a few administrative positions at GMS, because opening that campus, special ed, and then the 10 bus drivers. So all of that was campus level, 10 bus drivers. That was phase 1, the 3.1 million. Phase 2 that he'll go over in a little bit is 1.9 million. That includes campus, all campus administration support with Dean of Student Support, testing specialist, and the campus support aides, fine arts administrative assistant, and another band teacher, all special program support, dyslexia, ESL, SPED, OT, speech, inclusion aids, life skill aids, operations, the positions that were cut 2 years ago that we're bringing back, the accountant that was cut 2 years ago that we're bringing back, trying to bring back in, student nutrition positions that are self-funded, and the transportation manager, which was cut 2 years ago and brought back. Brand new positions would be the director of staff student learner services into this building, which has not had any administrative positions added. That would be a new position. And then the fine arts admin assistant, similar to what Kelly Perkins does for athletics. So that's kind of where the dollars are going on that. And then phase 3 is up there right now. Okay, so any other questions on phase 3 from the information standpoint, and then y'all can discuss phase 2 for
We've been
consider
kind of
action.
intertwining both of them. it seems.
Mhm.
So are we officially on to the phase 2 discussion then?
I think,
Unless
are we
you-
good? Are y'all good on 3?
Unless you have any phase 3.
Okay. All right, so you're now moving on to discussion action. Probably not till the 6th, the next workshop.
So phase 2 was, you just kind of got an overview of it, brought to you last month, and these are the positions that we we're asking for your approval on. They are within budget, and I'll take any questions about any of the individual positions.
The reason that Dean of Student Support is not listed there for Hilltop is because that position already, we had a position existed, and at the break in January, we filled that for Hilltop. So theirs is already in there. So just to clarify why there's only 3 in there. And when we mentioned the testing specialist at the high school meeting yesterday, they clapped. They were excited. The teachers were excited. That's a much needed position. Right now, that position's been split, 504 and testing at this together, and those are 2 really separate jobs, so. With all of the assessments that go on different levels at the high school.
I don't have any questions. I mean, it's gives us a balanced budget.
Makes
So-
sense.
Right. Right, I'll entertain a motion to approve action item 8A as presented.
I move to approve action item 8A as presented.
Dr. McDade, motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second?
Mr. Matthew Slayton with a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Dr. Daniel.
Thank y'all. See, they're happy. I knew they would be. Thank y'all.
Smiles.
Give them a minute.
I think that was just because there's only one more action item. And then so,
I saw a little bouncing over there on the chairs too. So, okay, that's right. Okay, I will not represent all the slides, but I do have a few I added at the beginning of this, just based on some questions we received. I know back on the 23rd, I think that's when it was, presented the long-range planning study that we have been working on internally as a district. So I just wanted to go over a little bit of the communication to the community and staff where this has been sent out. We had the public presentation March 23rd. Not sure where the 2206 came in. That's a random year. 2026, we'll fix that. March 23rd, 2026. And it was released in board briefs on March 24th, 2026. So that same week, we released it out in board briefs. Then we also, later that week, emailed separately to all parents and staff through Parent Square so that everyone had that. We went and checked our metrics. It was delivered to over 7,700 emails. There was a 72% open rate of that particular email. So it just kind of shows the communication side of that going out separately outside of the board briefs as well from a communication standpoint.
it's a phenomenal open rate.
It was a great open rate, yes. We have had really good open rates with Parent Square. We've been really pleased with that. So questions since the presentation that we've received. And I'll go over these, a couple of them on here, but then I've got a chart on the other ones. Just modifications, what would we need to be able to create the academic and elective specialist programs to meet the needs of 5th and 6th, since it was designed essentially as a pre-K 5. And so I'll go over that in a minute. And then if 5th and 6th runs over capacity of 850 at Michael Ball, how would that be addressed? And so I'll show that too as well. But current elementary campuses, they already have an 850 capacity footprint. They operate over that. They have been for the last several years, with flexibility to expand to a degree. But GMS, per enrollment projections, should have enough space through 2033 and would be able to host some of those 6th grade overflow classes. So they could, because they're right there on the same campus, could have some of the 6th grade electives in that building if need be. And then the cafeteria, questions about it as far as handling elementary school lunches and intermediate school. If we needed to make any necessary serving line adjustments, we could do that. But the space itself meets the needs of students regardless of grade configuration, and the cafeteria furniture, of course, will be age appropriate. And then a question on class sizes. So as far as the modifications for that campus, what we've already discussed with the architects, just preliminarily, science lab, and Mr. Cohen talked about this a little bit. Science lab and classroom space created for 6th grade with a dedicated prep room space for the lab, and that would be lab prep, room space, and then 2 dedicated science classrooms. It would also remove the classroom millwork cubbies and sinks on the first floor. So essentially, if you had your 6th graders on the first floor, they wouldn't have the cubbies. 5th grade upstairs would still have the opportunity for that, which is what they're used to having in elementary. The common spaces, we would remove the pre-K restrooms attached to those classrooms, which provides the extra classroom space in there. Modifying the playground for age-appropriate equipment. It actually removes 1 full playground because we would not need the primary playground equipment. Updating the finish colors to match GMS, so removing the elementary colors of the blue, yellow, green, etc., to the more of the colors that are over in the Gibson campus. And then the cafeteria doesn't need any necessary modifications, if anything, just some serving line adjustments. From an elective space standpoint, having the dedicated band space with the practice rooms and office. We talked about the acoustic additions. Current music room would be converted to a locker room, like a dressing space for pre-athletics, because they would need that. And 5th grade music would be relocated to an adjacent location near the band spaces. And then an additional art room would be created, but both would share the existing kiln and supply storage. So those are all the adjustments that would be made, that can be made with the same square footage footprint. As far as classroom size comparisons, Mr. Cohen was able to get those metrics for us. The Michael Ball classrooms, the average classroom space is 822 square feet. He measured some samples. The small was 745, the large was 872. Gibson, the average classroom space is 789 square feet with a range from 772 kind of average to the large side of 804. To put that in perspective of what we already have at AMS, the average AMS classroom size is 532 square feet. And of those samples measured, he measured a 440 and a 712. So he said basically if you know the footprint of AMS right now at 377, the 100, 200 hallways, those are classrooms are larger, and the standard classrooms in 400 and 500 hallway are the ones that are smaller. So just to give everyone an idea of what those classroom sizes are from a comparison, I wanted to share that information. And then this is just based on the numbers for the 2 campuses. If we run over the 850, the flexibility there, and as we grow into that point where we don't have space left, but being able to utilize some of Gibson, if they run in the 900s when they have a 1200 capacity, being able to have some overflow courses, potentially electives, etc., on that campus. And that's with a rezone, of which we talked about. So the second part to that presentation was looking at knowing that originally we had the undeveloped portion of First Ranch in the East Zone, and we were, with our enrollment projections, we were running into capacity issues at Legacy High School by 2030, within 2.5, 3 years of getting into that campus. So we had them, our demographer run the zoning, taking out the undeveloped portion of First Ranch, not the portion that's currently houses are going in, because there's 2 sections of that, and pulling that over and looking at what that would do from a long range standpoint to the next 10-year program out. So you could see there that definitely gives us out into that middle school standpoint of the 2034-35 school year. And then from a high school standpoint, it gets us to the 2034-35 instead of being in the 2030. We know there will have to be some decisions made going into that, but that's still far enough out that would give us time as a district to continue studying what's going to happen in First Ranch, the speed and size of that, and then looking at the options. Is it going to be high school 3? Is it going to be some sort of a different type of campus, expansion to what we currently have seat-wise? But we have some time to determine that as the projects in that area of the district unfold. So that is where we are right now on those numbers if we were to rezone that section there. We did have an additional consideration. We've had, I know we had someone on the dais ask last meeting, what about the choice for a feeder in that far south east section of the district, which is really just a couple of neighborhoods, specifically 218, Montesino Estates. That section is currently zoned for the east. When we did the original zoning in December of 24, we heard from 218 residents. They provided feedback that the east zone was more desirable because of their use of Shiloh and not using 377 and the traffic going on there. During this discussion, we've heard from the Montesino Estate families, and their feedback is different. They want to be on the west zone using 377. When you look at the number of students in that section of the district, it's really approximately 10 or less students per grade level. It's not a densely populated section of the district. Talk to transportation. Transportation says, from a recommendation standpoint, the way it's zoned is better suited for transportation because it eliminates the crossing of the railroad tracks for our buses getting stopped by trains. Obviously, they have to stop every time they cross a railroad track, whether there's a train or not, they have to stop. If there is a train that has stopped them, of course, it delays their routes. 377 at high traffic right now, what they do is if there's high traffic on 377, they will use Shiloh. Eventually, 377 will be, completed, and it will be a nice highway. But their recommendation from a transportation standpoint is that it remain in the zone it is. So we can have discussions because of the impact of the number of students in that section doesn't really swing much on either side, to leave it as is, move it over to the west, or to leave it and then provide choice if any of those families want to attend Canyon Falls High School and Scott Gibson Middle School pattern, then they could do that. So that's the information that we have for you this evening.
If they were given choice, though, transportation would be on them.
Yes, if we leave the zone where it is in the eastern, that's where the transportation is provided. If they chose to use the western feeder, then transportation would be on them.
And is this something that this would just be grandfathered just for the families that are currently there, or is this in perpetuity?
I think because of the number of homes that are there, the few number of students, I think it could just be part of the zoning package, if you will.
But we need to be really clear.
Right.
This isn't everywhere. You don't get to send an email and tell your story and change zones.
Yeah,
if you're willing to give up transportation.
Right.
It's opening a door that
And
it could be really hard to.
And once they choose, they choose.
Mm-hmm.
There's no going back.
Yes.
And again, we don't need to make that decision today,
Right.
tonight.
Right.
Yeah, that's like a May 18th decision.
No.
After.
Why wouldn't
The
you?
No, May 18th is fine.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't you?
I think we need to give it some more thought.
Yeah.
And
We got one email today. I know I'd like to think more on it.
Well, I raised it last month, and I've been thinking about it for a month. I'm ready to go.
And I did want to share as well. We did have a few families in Montesino actually go through the Just Ask Argyle, so I wanted to say I appreciated them using that system to enter their comments. So I know we received those in, a couple of them today, maybe one earlier in the week. So that was good because then I was able to filter those to the trustees as well. So wanted to thank them for using the Just Ask Argyle platform to provide their input.
Here's what I would say. If I think that it makes sense to give this difficult area within the geographical area within the district choice. Okay? Of course, I like, anytime you use the word choice, I'm kind of like, let's do it, except school choice. But, and so if that's where I'm probably gonna land on this deal, is like, you know, I don't know what green and purple make, but shade that color, that for that 2 or 3 neighborhoods in there. And
Because they dead end back in there anyway.
yeah, and then make the decision, because you're not really impacting any. I mean, they got a choice. You're not changing anything on them. I mean, if you were going to say, let's leave them in or move them to the west zone, I'd say you better, you know, announce that and give it a month. But if you're saying, hey, you got choice, why would you
Right.
sit around and wait?
Well, I hear what you're saying, but if we're keeping them in the east zone for now, because it's easiest on transportation now, then I don't know, is that the best decision for the next 3 years? Or is this the best decision in perpetuity? Because I don't know that when 377 is completed, that the zone, the east zone, is the best zone. And so having the choice may be the best thing, but the zone that they're in, and the zone, the most efficient zone for our transportation department, may not be the zone. So are we just making the decision that we're giving this area a choice, but then we may rezone them in the future if it makes sense?
I think that it's a fair point. I just think that that's a decision that would be a lot easier to make in 3 years or 4 years when 377 is done and transportation comes back and says it's a lot easier to provide transportation to that area, to the west zone. You leave it choice, but all you're changing is their transportation.
I think to Sam's point, there's more discussion, because you could point to other parts of the district that are outskirted, you know, northwest as well, what if they make the same choice?
There's something.
They could make the same argument.
So when do y'all want to make the decision?
I honestly think, like, the feedback we've received, and yes, you brought it up last month, you know, say that, but the feedback we received today, I think it brings on more things that we need to discuss. Ask, you know, not everyone's looked at it every day like you have, Mr. Westrom, so.
Are we gonna make this after you're gone?
I can't speak to that. Dr. Carpenter and I will talk about what goes on the agenda at a later date. But I think tonight we have an action item ahead of us that we have had a month to look at. And this is definitely something that we can have future consideration and look at the ramifications of what that means for the district in totality based upon the feedback we received from this neighborhood and what we've received in the past from others as well. So
you really have reconfiguration, and then the zoning of the undeveloped First Ranch piece. And that, I guess, would be a third piece for later, if that's what you want to do, if y'all want to do.
No, that's not what I want to do.
I mean, you could do it and then just set it up to have a review in 3 years. And bring it up again, in 3 years it'll be reviewed and whatever's going on then. It doesn't have to be permanent.
So, I mean, you could just make a motion to approve the long-range plan and facilities plan with an amendment to,
yeah, you could do that.
yeah, and just leave.
All right.
Okay, so
I'll entertain a motion to approve action item 8B, long-range growth and facilities planning as presented.
I move that we approve that action item as presented.
Action item 8B is presented. Motion by Mr. Hawksworth. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Leanne out there with a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed?
opposed.
All right.
He didn't raise his hand.
You did not
I
raise
didn't
your
count.
hand.
Opposed.
So to confirm, that was the long-range plan and the First Ranch portion zoning.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
The
thank you.
undeveloped piece.
The undeveloped
The
portion.
undeveloped
Okay,
piece.
thank you.
Okay, time 7:25 p.m. We are adjourned. Thank you.